Hello and welcome back to the channel. So today I have my friend Ryan here. He's just been in China now for 1 week. He hasn't yet been on the subway. So our assignment for today is to get him on the subway and see how it compares to Taiwan and Japan, the other subways that he's been on. You want to say hi?
Hello, I'm looking forward to this.
Right, let's go. Okay, so we're currently at People Square subway station. People Square is one of the biggest subway stations in the whole of Shanghai. Ryan has been to quite a couple of countries in his life. He's been in Thailand, he's been obviously in the UK. Ryan, what subways have you taken in different countries around the world?
Well, obviously the subway in the UK is probably the biggest one I've been on. But I've also been, predominantly in Taiwan recently, and even more recently Thailand. But the first impressions, this is a lot bigger, and there's so many more shops. It's almost like they've turned it into a shopping mall as well as just a subway, which is really cool.
Yeah,
really
People Square Station is a lot like that.
Yeah,
they're not all like this, but People Square Station does have a lot of markets and a lot of restaurants and little cafes and stuff like that. So the good thing about this one is you don't have to mess about with like a little ticket or anything like that. Just go straight through. So much better than this one.
What, do you scan your...
Yeah, I just go like that. In Taiwan, are there a lot of subway stations, like where you live? Is it easy to get to one?
Yeah, but there wasn't as many lines. So no, not always, to be honest.
How many lines are there?
They do it by colour, so there's red, green, orange.
So under 10?
Yeah, about 5. So.
Wow, 5. It's not a lot. Not convenient.
No, in Taiwan it's not entirely convenient. There's a lot of times where you can live too far from an MRT. They call it an MRT. And it just makes life more difficult than it needs to be.
Yeah. Shanghai is good because there's literally a subway station on every single corner. So convenient.
Yeah.
So Ryan was in desperate need of the bathroom, but luckily he's not in the UK or Japan or Taiwan. He doesn't need to pay to use the toilet, and there's one on pretty much every platform here in Shanghai. How convenient is that? Okay, so we have arrived at Lujiazui station. Just going to take a look around this subway station, this beautiful subway station, and then we're going to head upstairs, pop outside and take a look at the towers. Ryan, your thoughts on Lujiazui station?
Right now it seems quite big. We've got this lovely golden patterning going down the side. It's very fancy.
Yes, it's pretty cool. So underneath our last video that we did together, you guys were kind enough to write me a list of questions that you want me to ask Ryan. So don't worry, those questions are coming very soon. So Ryan just had one of his first realizations about China. His code wasn't working to get through the metro gate, and the kind gentleman came over and instead of berating him or telling him off, he just let him go through the gates. And Ryan just said, what did you just say, Ryan?
I said surprised at how easily, and how nice he was about the whole process. In the end, he just let me through, but I was expecting like a lot more stress, a lot more hassle, but it's hassle-free, just straight through.
Ryan was under the impression, due to certain things that he'd heard before coming to China, that it was going to be a lot more authoritative and that he was going to be in trouble for not being able to go through the subway. So that's a nice little realization for him. We've just arrived, just come upstairs in Lujiazui. Going to have a quick look at the towers. So pretty, isn't it?
Yeah,
can you imagine anything like this in London or Taiwan?
No, definitely not in Taiwan, and not really the colours in London either.
No.
It's a lot more grey and
all
drab.
the ones in London are very grey, yeah.
It's drab.
Nothing as impressive as this, that's for sure.
Insane. Okay, so yeah, I had a... Oh, it started already.
Not in there. What were you saying?
I said I had there's like a suspicion that what you hear in the West about it being very strict here and very controlled and very tight was exaggerated, and it probably wasn't actually like that when you're here. And you know, to my pleasant surprise, that's true. It's a lot less restricted than I thought it is, and it's very nice, you know, here to live.
Yeah, you hear a lot of things in the West. China are of course strict on certain things, which is a very good thing. They're very strict on crime, they're very strict on drugs, and it really helps to boost society and make it a nice place to be in. Unlike, of course, the UK. It is starting to absolutely hammer it down, so we're going to go inside.
现在是安静点的情况下去。它可能速度会比较慢，它如果是之前。
Okay, so the rain is absolutely hammering down outside, so we've just popped inside for a drink and to ask Ryan a couple of the questions that you guys posted underneath the previous video. So Ryan, if we start with just your, just go over your first impressions of China again. So you've been here, what, 1 week now?
Yeah, 1 week now, yeah. Okay, so, I mean, the first thing I noticed, like, straight away, is how big everything is. In Shanghai, the scale of everything is insane. Like the architecture, it really hits you. Like I remember when I was flying down into Pudong, like the first thing I noticed is you see all the really nicely lit up like roads that, what is it, pass through the river? Yeah, it's insane, and it's like nothing I've ever seen in the world before. So that was what hit me initially, just the scale of the architecture.
In terms of like media, we've all seen the media in the UK and how negative it is towards China, and how China is always portrayed in a negative light. But what I'm interested in finding out is, because I personally haven't ever been to Taiwan, so what is the media like in Taiwan, and how do they portray China? What's the media like in terms of that?
Well, I mean, obviously it's gonna depend on an individual basis, but the general consensus I got from being in Taiwan was quite negative towards China. It was almost like they were sort of like seen as, you know, the bad guy, and you know, everything wrong with Taiwan was because of China. And that living in China would not be as fun as I imagined, but that just like hasn't been the case at all. I've been really surprised at how free it is here, but like also how happy the people are. Like it's portrayed as such a like negative place, but you know, you come here and people are laughing, they're really happy. Like
it's a big shock.
Yeah,
such a big shock.
They're very friendly. Yeah, compared to anywhere else I've been in the world, they're very, very friendly, very happy.
Would you say the media in Taiwan is more negative of China compared to the UK, or would you say the UK's media is worse?
I'd say they're equally bad, to be fair. They're equally negative of China as a country. I mean, obviously, my Chinese is pretty poor, so I can't really understand what the Taiwanese news is saying. But from people I've spoken to, they were very negative of China.
That's a shame. Did you notice any differences between the older generation and the younger generation and how they speak about China?
Yeah, 100%. Actually, I was about to go on to my first boss when I worked in Taiwan. He's a bit older, and he was actually very pro-China. He was Taiwanese, but he wanted to be part of China, and he loved China. And I actually knew a few people that were from China living in Taiwan, and they were quite positive about it being there. But the younger people around my age, they didn't like the supposed lack of freedom. But having lived in both places now, that really isn't a thing. Like I haven't experienced that at all.
It's a shame. So why do you think that is? That the older generation have a different view compared to the younger generation? Do you think it's perhaps with what the younger generation are being fed through social media and through legacy media and stuff like that? Yeah,
100%. It's like the narrative they grow up on, and obviously they've never been there, they've never had the opportunity to go
because
there.
if it's not coming from the older generation, because as you said, the older generation have very positive thoughts towards China, so if it's not coming from their mums and their dads and their grandparents, their views, I mean, I wonder where it is coming from, these negative views of China. Perhaps it is just being, what they're fed through social media.
Yeah,
and
it's the West. It's the West. It's almost like propaganda, and I kind of had like a suspicion that it was that before I came. Because when something is portrayed so negatively, you always have to question. Like nothing can be that bad. There's always a reason. There's always a motivation.
There's always another side.
Yeah. And I find that to be the case. So I think definitely the media, and especially the Western media, can be to blame for that.
谢谢。
不客气。
谢谢。
Very nice of her. So we all know about the infrastructure differences between China and the rest of the world. I mean, when I first arrived in China, I was shocked, especially coming from Oxford in the UK. I mean, we obviously don't have a subway in Oxford. We have a couple of bus routes, never on time.
Yeah,
the buses are always dirty.
Yeah.
But I mean, did you have what was your first thoughts on the infrastructure in China when you first arrived here? Just a week ago now, actually.
Oh, it's just convenient. It's useful. Like it shows up for a start. It's on time, and it's clean. It's frequent as well. It's useful.
You haven't been to America, have you?
No, I haven't been to America. No.
But you've been. What Asian countries have you been to?
I've been to Japan. I've been to Thailand. I've been to Vietnam as well.
Okay, so do you see any differences? What are the major differences in infrastructure between Japan and between China?
Well, that's a good question, actually. It's quite, they're similar in a way, but Japan always felt slightly less convenient because the people were a bit less willing to help. In China, just coming here earlier, there was a guy that he helped me out trying to get through the metro station. In Japan, that didn't really happen. It was very like hands off and not much English at all, which is
that's interesting because I've never been to Japan, but from what I'm fed on Western media, I'd have thought that Japanese people are like gods and that they're really, really polite and really friendly. Because that's what we're told. For some reason, Japan has incredible PR in the West, incredible public relations. So I would have expected Japanese people to be a little bit more accommodating to tourists and travellers. To be honest.
I mean, on general, they're friendly people, but from my experience, especially in the public transport sector. It was not easy. It was difficult to navigate. I'd say actually more difficult to navigate than almost anywhere else I've been in the world, purely because of the fact that they were quite unwilling to assist you, and it's a very sort of complicated system. You kind of need that sometimes. So yeah, I'd say for that reason.
Okay, final question for you, Ryan, before we go outside and brave the weather, is how do attitudes towards foreigners differ in the UK, mainland China, the province of Taiwan, and in a place like Japan, for example, in your experience?
Yeah, okay, well, I mean, they've been extremely friendly here. Every time I've had a problem, someone's tried to help me out, and the real sort of indicator of it is the fact that a lot of the times they speak not much English, but they're still trying to help me out. They're going above and beyond their capabilities, which is really nice to try and help me out. And in terms of England, you don't really see that often. People are always very focused on themselves in England and their own mission of the day to worry about helping other people. So it's 10 times better than England, the treatment of foreigners. In terms of other Asian countries, well, I've just said about Japan that was difficult. It kind of felt like they had their own kind of very established, their own sort of culture, and anything outside of that was treated as secondary, which again, it's their way, it's fair enough, but in terms of the treatment of foreigners, it wasn't as good as China. Taiwan people were friendly, but as it's a bit more, especially Taipei, it's a bit crazy in Taipei. You can meet the odd person that's a bit more how should I put this, less willing to help. China is kind of overall there's more of a consensus and more of a willingness to help than other places I've been. It's nice.
Interesting. Okay, thanks for your thoughts. Thanks Ryan for his thoughts. If you have any more questions for Ryan, drop them in the comments below and I will ask him them in the next video. I'm going to go now and brave the weather, maybe jump back on the subway. Haven't really decided yet.
Good luck.
We'll go find out.